welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Coach Amy Bond. Amy is the most winningest coach in FSU history. She was also a 2017 ACC Coach of the Year. She has coached 3 Olympians, and she has won here 18 straight NCAA Regional Championship appearances, 8 straight NCAA Final appearances. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Coach Amy Bond.
Thanks, Courtney. Thanks for having me. This is going to be a fun little session, so I'm excited about it.
Well, I am thrilled to have you on, Coach Bond. It is going to be so exciting. We always talk about life, sport, and career. And this is an episode where we are truly going to be speaking about all of them, the life lessons, career experience, and of course, sport. So let's dive right into it. If you could please begin with just a brief introduction and background of yourself.
You know, I'm Amy Bond. I grew up in Ocala, Florida, so I'm a born and raised Floridian. I am the oldest of 4 kids, so I actually have a twin brother who is 12 minutes younger than I am. But the cool part is we were born on different days. I was born just before midnight and him just afterwards, which is cool. You know, I don't know what it's like to be a single, but at the same time, I don't have to share a birthday with anybody. But love my brothers, and we come from an athletic family. My parents were both athletes and educators. And, you know, growing up in Ocala, small town, it's much bigger now. But, you know, they gave me some good, wholesome roots. The only negative was they are all Gators. My parents both graduated from Florida, and now my 3 brothers have graduated from Florida. So I was the lone wolf. I will tell you, my mom spent a year at Florida State before marrying my dad. But, you know, all of that being said, you know, I have a tiny soft spot in my heart for the University of Florida, but I have seen the light in Florida State. Is the garnet gold's running through my blood. But chose to come to Florida State, and my world has been wonderful ever since. So just the opportunity to play golf here and now be a head coach here is truly something special. After playing golf here, I did turn pro for a couple years, but had the opportunity to come back to Florida State, be an assistant coach for 5 years, and then got my first head job at Princeton University in Princeton, New Jersey, which this Floridian I don't necessarily think was made for the New Jersey winters. But enjoyed my 4 years there, and then got the opportunity 15 years ago to come back to Florida State. So, you know, that's a brief quick little snippet, but something that I'm extremely proud of growing up in a small town with a middle-class family. And now I sit here coaching my alma mater.
That is incredible. And the one thing that really stood out is your family definitely has that athletic background. So as you were growing up, as you look back now, is there anything that really stood out, any lessons that were learned, particularly pertaining to athletics, that would help you now present day as a head coach?
Well, my parents were, you know, had rules and regulations and pretty strict on me and my brothers, of course, because they had, at one point, they had 4 kids under 3, because we're all pretty close in age. But I think the biggest thing is we were always outside. We always knew our boundaries. You know, you couldn't go into the street. You know, if we were riding our Hot Wheels down the driveway, as soon as you got to kind of the cut line of the street, you had to stop. And there were always repercussions. So I think having those boundaries, but also being able to be an independent person and pick what sports we wanted to do or what activities we want to do, I think really helped. Plus trying to organize, you know, as the oldest of 4, I was constantly coaching my brothers, keeping them in line, doing little things for them. So I think, you know, my parents certainly did a great job raising us, of not only raising independent people, but people who had a zest for giving back to others.
I love that. And when you talk about just the autonomy that parents can provide to be able to maybe dabble into different sports, as you were mentioning, I could reflect. And the two sports that I kind of started with, I guess you could say, was tennis and gymnastics. And I I loved both, but there always comes that time when it's getting a little bit more serious and that focus needed to be more paid attention to, of course, with one sport. But I do remember that, and the ability for a parent or from a parent's standpoint to be able to allow that freedom to explore for the child. For me, it was jumping in the pit. I loved jumping in the pit. And I think the sport of gymnastics was so unique that it had literally four different events. So you could always be improving upon something. But I like how you mentioned just the autonomy part. And as we would move forward, your background is all Florida State University, which I just love here. So you received your degree in sport management. You would then go on to get your master's degree in sport management. When did you exactly know, hey, I definitely want to become a head coach one day? Was it during the academic years?
No, definitely not. When I first came to Florida State, I really thought about being a vet. That's kind of what I wanted to do. I was fairly new to golf. I mean, I didn't start playing golf till I was 13 years old. So think about 13 to 18. That's only 5 years. Um, so wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But one unique thing about me is when I was a senior in high school, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So had to start taking insulin and figuring things out. And actually that moment in time of it happened in October of my senior year. I hadn't figured things out by the time I got to college. I didn't really know how the insulin was working and just really how to keep track of everything. So I actually got redshirted my freshman year, kind of got a medical hardship, which gave me an extra year. And I think it was at that moment I'm like, okay, what can I do with this?
Right.
So I went ahead and got my undergrad in 3.5 and then did a spring master's program where kind of when I started the master's program, I was obviously one of the older players on the team. And lucky enough for me, a lot of them came to me. I got voted as captain. I think it was more at that point, I was like, well, I still want to play golf. I do want to do that. And at the time, two coaches couldn't coach. So there was no opportunity for me to be a quote assistant coach maybe when I graduated. So it really wasn't until I guess I was out a year and I was playing professional golf. And my coach from here called and she said, hey, are you interested in coming back and being an assistant coach? And the poor, struggling professional golfer that was Amy Bond at the time was like, you know what? I can maybe get out from dad's payroll and make a little money on the side. And they allowed me to both play and coach. So I coached during the winter and played during the summer. And 2 years into it, I was like, okay, I think I'm much better suited to be a coach than a player. So I probably was 25 when I was like, okay, coaching might be something good for me. But really early on, even though my dad coached us in Little League and my mom was a kind of a health nut aerobics instructor and taught all these classes and things like that, it was in the back of my mind, but I really didn't think I could do that as a job. But when my coach called and said, hey, you want to do it? I'm like, okay, let's try it. And turns out, nearly 25 years later, here I am.
That is an incredible story. And I think what's always so exciting, I love asking this question when a family has pretty much the same background when it comes to athletics. What is it like when everybody comes back and you're at the dinner table? Do you talk coaching or is it no, coaching's off right now? It's just strictly family. We're talking different subjects.
Well, my mom would much prefer us to not talk coaching, but unfortunately, it does happen.
Sure.
Coaches never stop. We're so competitive, whether it's our sport or another sport, we're so competitive. So the dinner tables, especially around Thanksgiving and the Florida State game, is always a big, big deal about who's going to win and what's going to happen and things like that. But my mother would much prefer us to talk. And actually, she would start the conversations. We would have family dinners once a week growing up. And she would always start with, okay, what's something good out of your week that's not sports oriented? And I think that's good. So then they were able to have us be kind of multitasking, working on other things, academics, community service, things like that that weren't athletics related. And to this day, she's now coming back to sport because she got so sick of it. At one point, she had 92 baseball games and 12 golf matches in a year, and she's like, I'm over it. But overall, there's a lot of sports talk at our house, and she'll just cover her ears and be like, okay, when's my turn? But that's the fun part, is we're constantly competing at something, doing something. But at the same time, you come back to a common ground. So I've got those Gators wearing Florida State gear, so that I feel like a success.
I love it. I love it. And what's so interesting? My alma mater is UF, and I was a gymnast there, but yet, of course, I'm here at also Florida State University. So people always ask me, so Courtney, who do you cheer for? And I'm like, they both have done so much for me, and I'm so honored to be part of both. So I always tell everybody, I'm like, I don't know, I'm confused. I don't know who to cheer for.
Well, I'm with you. That's how we are. When my brother was pitching and playing baseball at Florida, I would go watch his games. I would have my Florida State golf hat on, but I would have a Florida t-shirt on. So, for me, blood's thicker than water. So when it came to cheering for them and being supportive of them, I certainly was. But, good people come out of both schools, and they are both really good athletically and academically. So it was kind of a win-win for me, but it is nice to kind of rib my brothers from time to time, and them in turn to me when, each other's teams win.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, the rivalry between University of Florida and Florida State University is almost unlike no other. I mean, it really is so exciting to go to that game when they come together every year. But, as we speak about coaching at the dinner table, I would love to hear what your coaching philosophy is.
Well, it hasn't really changed over the years. Thank goodness. One of the things I learned a long time ago is if we dive into the person, we can figure out the player. So it's kind of cliche to say, but I would kind of say I'm a player's coach because I'm getting to know them on a personal level. Golf is so mental, and there's a lot that goes into it, but sports itself, people play for different reasons. They have different motivations. And with golf, you're very independent. I mean, we make them a team in college golf, but you're very independent. So they're constantly working on things on their own and individually. So for me, I really have to figure out what makes them tick and what their motivation is. Do they want to be a professional golfer, or are they just using golf to get through college? Those little things to me are really important. So when we're recruiting, I tell the kid up front, I'm like, first off, I can talk your ear off, but I want to hear from you. The other thing is, I'm going to ask you random questions. What do you like to do outside of golf? Who's your dream foursome? This way you start to figure out, okay, golf is number one in the world, or it's one and something's a close second, with their family and things like that. So that's kind of my philosophy. And I want the players to be interactive with me. As much as my name is on the door, it's still their program as well. And I may have to nix some ideas here and there, but overall, I want them to enjoy their experience. Your college years should be the best 4 years of your life. And golf, we can really focus on the negatives a lot. So I choose to focus on the positives. It's hard. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I got to count to 10 before I go and talk to them. But overall, it's really fun because every day is different. And I get the opportunity to help some pretty special people live their dreams.
I absolutely love that. And when you were speaking even about with maybe some athletes of keeping that balance too amongst academics, athletics, and even the social life during college too as well. And with your case, some of these athletes, of course, can then go pro. And in comparison to gymnastics, it's very, very seldom. It is starting to increase a little bit, but it is more seldom to see a gymnast right after college go into the professional atmosphere and maybe compete at that Olympic level. And so I could remember during my years, I knew that my time was going to be done after, age 21, 22. And so it was starting to look at the big picture of life physically after sport, what that was going to look like. So I love how you said that, really focusing on each individual and what their career aspirations are, as well as what their sport aspirations are too. And so, one thing I want to reiterate, Coach Bond, you are the winningest coach in Florida State history. And I am so curious to understand how you have built such a strong culture on your team.
Well, you got to remember with golf, we play a lot of other teams. And so being the winningest women's golf coach here, I have 20 wins. But the important thing to know there is, for me, I've been surrounded by some great assistant coaches. So I did not get here alone. And the program is just not me. Along with that, we've had some wonderful young ladies come through the program who have helped build it. I came back in 2010. Well, in 2013, that was really our first true recruiting class, where we went through a whole recruiting cycle, got to know them and things like that. So that class, our whole kind of statement to them was, help us change the program. And by golly, if they didn't, they started us on this streak of 8 straight national championship finals. So it comes with the players buying in, but also having the great assistant coaches who kind of have the same philosophy of building up the person to figure out the player. And to me, it's a team. We are literally a team. The great thing at Florida State's, we're a combined program. So not only do I have access to one assistant coach, I have 2, plus our director of golf, Trey Jones. So you're talking about nearly 65 years of experience there. And when you have great minds like that working together for a common goal of making both our men's and women teams good things are going to happen. So I think, I've been very blessed with the people that I've surrounded with. I'm thankful for my parents giving me a good foundation to start. And then the players buying in who have similar philosophies. We have a lot of players that come in with kind of chips on their shoulders, which I love because they have something to prove. And I just send them out there every day and know that they're doing the hard work. If I were to miss a practice or something one day, I know they're out there working their tails off to get better. So it's not just me, and it's wonderful to be the winningest women's golf coach, but I did not do it by myself.
That's wonderful. And one thing that I think is so important to point out is how you build well-rounded individuals on your team with these athletes. And I think it should definitely be known that the emphasis too on academics and the excellence in academics, you have been able to achieve on your team 88 ACC academic honor roll selections, 42 all ACC academic golf team selections, and then 27 WGCA scholar athlete team selections. I think that speaks volumes about focusing in on the individual, not just in the athletic side, but also their academics. So can you maybe speak to those accolades and accomplishments on the team?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my most proudest moments is when a player graduates and they get their good grades. Thankfully, golfers are pretty good students, but there is a reason that it's student athlete and not athlete student. The emphasis is on being a student, getting an education, and having a degree to fall back on. Sports are great, but sometimes unfortunate things happen, whether we get sick or injured or things like that. It's always nice to have something to fall back on. And our players have dedicated themselves to being good in the classroom. But I'm proud of that. Every single one of my players has graduated, except for one. And she became number one in the world and left, but now is having a very successful career on the LPGA tour. I'm going to convince her one day to come back and go ahead and get that degree, so I don't have that one. But that is truly a proud moment for me, because I know no matter what happens in their sport, that they are going to be successful one way or another, because they do have that degree hanging on the wall. But it takes dedication from them, because golf, let's be real, it takes 4 or 5 hours to play. So you have to be dedicated when you're playing, but also we practice 4 hours a day as well. So not only do they have to stay on top of their schoolwork, they have to be dedicated to come to practice 50 hours a week. I mean, the good ones are here 50 hours a week. So it's like, when do I find time to study? But they do, whether it be studying on the road. Heck, sometimes they're taking finals during ACC week. So a lot of that I put on the player, and they do it without any hassle from me. But if there does come a day where at practice they are struggling because they're focused on, they have a test tomorrow and they're not prepared, we'll let them out of practice and go and take care of that, because a distracted player is doing nothing. They're not getting better. So for me, that's the biggest kind of star in my hat, is the fact that they are dedicated to their studies in a variety of different degrees. That's what I want. When you come here, you should be able to study what you want. So we have anything from business to psychology to sports management. Heck, we even have biology majors. So whatever they want to do, they are more than welcome to do. So I think that's important, and it helps that they're well-rounded when they get here, and put the emphasis on school first.
Something that really stands out is the lessons that we could learn in sport. And I could remember what you were speaking about is having that level of discipline, and then also time management skills. You always hear, about time management and how sport teaches that. But I really think that was such a valuable lesson, even when I was in club gymnastics before I even got to the college arena. But it was that understanding that those practices are long. I mean, 5 to 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And to your point, you're exhausted. You may have a test. And my father was always about academics, because of course the physical side of gymnastics, I mean, you could get injured just in any sport, of course, injured at any moment. And then what you were saying, what do you fall back on? And those days, it's funny, I look back and I give him a hard time, because during those days I was so excited to be in the gym. But when I did have a test, he's like, no, you got to get out early. I'm like, no, I have one more event. But now reflecting back, the importance of academics, I think is great that you really mentioned that. And something that I would just enjoy hearing about is your experience coaching Lottie Woad, who is a sophomore All-American and National Player of the Year finalist, who went on to win the Augusta National Women's Amateur. And she finished second place at the NCAA Championship Finals, which was the best in school history in the individual standings. So, Coach Bond, with Lottie Woad and maybe all your other very successful athletes, what are some particular coaching tactics that you use to develop and to coach such high level athletes?
I mean, sometimes we just stay out of the way. I mean, let's be real. Sometimes you just let them go. You just maybe feed and water them. You throw them a sandwich and you throw them some water. But no, we've had some great players come through the program. Lottie had an exceptional year last year, where it was kind of capped off with the Augusta National Women's Am, which is probably the largest women's amateur tournament in the world and seen by millions of people. But it was so unique that she birdied 3 of the last 4 holes. When you think about Augusta National Golf Club, every golfer in the world wants to play it. And sometimes even non-golfers just want to set foot on property. So to be there and know that she birdied 3 of the last 4, where only, I think it's 4 or 5 of the Masters champions have ever birdied 3 of the last 4, one of which is Arnold Palmer. And it's so unique that she did that under pressure, and she seemed so calm. And I was blessed enough to be able to go and be there and to see her determination. She'd worked really hard to get here. And with her golf coach, Luke Bone, her individual golf coach, Luke Bone, and her have been together, working together for a really long time. And what we do is we kind of sit down once a month. Luke's in England. He makes the time to talk with her at least once a week, have a lesson with her once a week. And then once a month, they sit down and talk to me. And with her, with every player, we critique and work on different areas that they need improvement and figure out ways to help them at practice. Lottie has a plan in place of what she wants to work on. And then so when I talk to Luke, he's like, okay, is she doing this, this, this? We're kind of the eyes and ears away. And we get nitty. I mean, we get so minute in the details with her, where one of the biggest discussions we had was how she was chipping it out of the rough and the different levels where a ball could sit down in the rough, be in the middle, or be on top in her contact. So we're getting so specific with her. But it was super special as a coach to be there and watch her achieve that, because it got her into all 4 LPGA majors this year. But she was at world number 1 for 5 straight weeks, just fell to number 2 last week. But to reach that ultimate pinnacle, she works extremely hard. She has a process. She knows what she wants each week, and she goes after it. So a lot of our players have that self-determination and work ethic to do it. We've had some really hard workers, but she outworks them all. She would spend from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturdays here working on or putting and be very structured in that. So my advice to most people, if you want to be really good at your sport, it's going to take time, but you also have to go through the process and the structure of it. And our best players do that. They have a game plan in place, because if you just come out here and roam around aimlessly, bad things are probably going to happen, or you're not going to be as productive as you should be. But it's been really fun to watch her. I'm excited. She's coming back for her junior season. Not only is she a great athlete and golfer, but she's a 3.8, 3.9 student. So for her, again, she is super structured in what she does and has a very good head on her shoulders. So with any of those kids, when they come through the program, we are super blessed that they chose to be Seminoles. And sometimes we are just literally in the passenger seat watching, kind of maneuvering, maybe giving them a few directions here and there. But the players really got to want it. And we're just here to help them kind of navigate through the speed bumps along the way.
No, I love that. And I love how you speak about the structure and almost the creation of short-term goals and long-term goals to provide the direction, and seeing that larger vision, because sometimes these seasons are extremely long. I mean, just speaking from gymnastics, once you're in the season, you have many meets that you have to be able to, of course, pace yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I mean, having that game plan and all of those coaches behind the scenes, that's what I love how you spoke about that, is there's always a village behind that one person that's, really in the spotlight, but how valuable coaches are. I mean, I think to myself, I still speak to my collegiate coaches and my club coaches, because when you're able to reflect back, something that got me like pretty sentimental. I went down to Orlando to see my club coaches relatively recently, and you think about where like different points in your life and how you literally got to like where you're at in life. And if it wasn't for those coaches, I mean, amongst many other things, of course, family members, dad, for example, but when I think about the discipline and how those coaches were literally like my second family almost, you were in the gym 5 to 6 hours a day. It was pretty much like a full-time job, but how they molded you into who you are today. And when you speak about that hard work ethic, I love that, because of course, there's certain hours, but then also if that athlete wants to do more on their own, I think that is what really is able for that athlete to excel or to take them to the next level, because they have such a passion for the sport itself. So I just love that you mentioned that. And when we talk about coaching, has there been anything that has stood out to you? You've been a head coach for 20 years, but in total, 24 years. From your perspective as a coach, what has really changed or evolved in the realm of coaching, generally speaking?
I think some of the biggest things is the players these days know so much more about technology and their golf swing than I ever did growing up.
Mhm.
They have a good grasp of exactly what they need to do, what a golf club's doing, what their swing needs to do. So coaching has evolved where it's become much more specific and teaching them to fix their own game for the most part. The really good players know exactly what they're doing and how to fix it. So as you get to the college level with golfers, we're only adding to their team. We're not taking away. So they already have a swing coach. They may have a putting coach. They may have a sports psychologist. So we're adding to that team. And so I think you have to be really good communicators and understand what the player is looking for and what your role is in that dynamic. But the main thing, when we go out here every day, we focus on a certain area of their game for the whole group. We structure the first half of practice every single day, and it's revolving around 120 yards in. Their short game. That's your scoring clubs in golf, and being able to get the ball in the hole quicker. Everybody needs to work on that. But
Right.
then we break off individually with them to work on the individual pieces of their game. Some players are really good ball strikers. Some people wedge it very well. Some people putt it and chip it very well. Others need work in those areas. So you have to kind of narrow it down to what exactly is missing in a player's game to make them great. And sometimes it's the psychology part. If I had to go do it again, I'd totally get my degree in
Yes.
psychology. Totally. Because that's where we spend a lot of our time. And with the social media world, you know,
Mhm.
the young people these days rely on that so much and
Yeah.
wanting to be liked and know that they're working hard and have somebody kind of reassure them. I think those are big pieces where we're much more of cheerleaders now and encouragers. Um, but if we've developed a good relationship with the player, we can sit down and go, okay, you're losing focus when you're at practice. You're too distracted. Let's
Yeah.
try this. So I think we're constantly having to adapt to the different environments that not only happen every day, but what's happening in the players' lives. So, I've been doing this a really long time, but if I'm not learning something new and listening to my players week in and week out, I'm getting lost. I'm going to lose them. If we can prove that we care and want what's best for them, they will literally run through a brick wall for us. And that's what we want. I want them to know that we will run through the brick wall for them. And in turn, they'll do the same. But it comes down to being able to trust one another and know that we have their best interests at heart.
I love that. And when you speak about that, that sense of encouragement from a coaching standpoint, that's really interesting because you're not only, of course, there for the technical side of golf, but like you said, you're that cheerleader to be able to say, like, looking at the big picture, we all do not have great days every day, even though we want to. But if you do have a bad day, to be able to come to practice and to be able to be uplifted. I mean, I can remember there was many days in college where you had a difficult test or maybe something didn't go well academically. But when you were in the gym, it was all about gymnastics, the team, the coaches, and it was such a fun atmosphere that I could always remember and look back on. And so I think it's really interesting with golf, and you had mentioned this. When you talk about golf, it is such a mental sport. And when you are getting into that later part of the season and those tournaments are more intense with the pressure, how do you prepare those athletes in those intense environments?
Yeah, with golf, golf is pretty much year round. We have a fall season, we have a spring season, and then immediately following the spring, they go straight into their summer tournaments where they're
Mhm.
gone. So really our only off time is kind of November and maybe part of December. So you got to kind of be able to read your players and know what's happening. And we can never really mirror the pressure that a student athlete is under, whether it be to make a putt to win the national championship or even to win the conference championship. Everybody's going to feel it. You're going to get nervous and things like that. So I think for me, one of the things that God has blessed me with is a sense of humor. So I try to downplay that a little bit, de-stress them. We have some opportunities at practice where we kind of have fun Fridays where maybe the players make the rule that day, or if we're doing something and we'll make it a team atmosphere. And if they accomplish it, maybe they can whip cream pie the coaches in the face. They get all kinds of things like that. We end up doing little things like that because it excites them. It motivates them. And I think a lot of times you need to be distracted from the task at hand to actually be able to perform at the highest level. So it's distracting. It's distracting them. When I'm talking to them on the golf course, we're not talking golf. We're talking where we're going to eat, what's happening over here, maybe wildlife that's running across the fairways, any little thing that's going to distract them the tiniest little bit. And that's why us focusing on the person first, we'll know exactly. I have different conversations with every single player that I walk with. And what motivates them. Some want to talk golf all the time. Most don't. In their spare time, they want to do something different. So if I can kind of deflect the pressure or feel like they give me the pressure, even though I'm not hitting one shot, if I can take the pressure off of them so that they can succeed and actually execute a good shot, I think that's what coaching is all about. To help them understand that it's okay to mess up. The weight of the world is not on you. If you pull this off, we get a high five and a lot of screaming and clapping. If you don't, you're still the same person that we know and love, and we'll get them next time. I mean, I think with golf, there's so many opportunities because you're on a golf course for 4 or 5 hours and you get to execute many different shots to perfection sometimes, and other times you may, in your word, fail. But I think overall it's just really being there to support them and help them in those situations, knowing that no matter what, you're still loved at the end of the day. It doesn't come down to you. It may come down to you in the whole scheme of things, but if we miss it by a shot, I think every team member can look back at one shot they missed throughout the day or throughout the week that they could have done better.
No, I think that's so special. And one thing, and I've heard this from other coaches, which I think so interesting, is when you speak about being alongside different teammates and what really focusing in on what motivates them. And like you said, sometimes it's not even talking about the sport right before you're, ready to hit, or in, gymnastics, like getting ready to, mount the apparatus. But others are very like focused. They don't need that pep talk. And so it really is so interesting to see what each individual athlete needs for them to excel in sport. I always thought that was so interesting. I'm sure from a coaching standpoint of, like I said, okay, when I walk up to her, we're going to be talking about, like you said, like where we're going to eat, or, look at that, animal that just crossed, the fairway, instead of being so focused on golf. So I've always thought that was really interesting when it comes to motivation for an athlete. And another, like to transition, I really want to focus on, you've had so much success in the sport of golf and on the golf team, Amy, but you also are really focused on community service alongside sport itself. And plenty of positivity is always about community. And so I want to list a couple accolades. So for yourself in 2018, you were awarded the Founders Award by the WGCA. And then when we speak about your golf team, they have won 13 Athletic Directors Cups for service at Florida State's annual Golden Knoll Banquet. So could you speak from your perspective about the importance of engaging in community service?
I think community is huge. In anything that we do, it takes a village to raise a child. We've all heard that before. Same kind of deal. My parents instilled in us that you need to give back because, again, you don't get there alone, and other people helped get there. Money doesn't grow on trees. At some point, somebody had to donate some money or donate their time for me to get where I am, for our players to get where they are. Our boosters and our donors and our alumni have all helped build what we have today. And to give back, there's nothing better. You hear it, especially with the Olympics going on this week, you hear so much about these athlete stories and their dedication and the people around them that have also dedicated their lives to helping these players get to where they need to. So if we can even give, an hour of our time a week to helping others, I think it's good, because you're not only gaining a fan, but you're also giving that young child, that adolescent, or even that adult the opportunity to get to know you, appreciate you, and at the same time look up to you. That maybe one day for that young child or that adolescent, that they can be a basketball player or a golfer, or go to Florida State. I think that's huge, because seeing people on paper and seeing people in person, very, very different. So if you take the time, it's so rewarding. There is never a time that you are going to waste your time when you spend it with others. So that's kind of the point I want to get across to our players. And same in the coaching realm. Coaches struggle. We struggle. So if you can build a base of people that you can vent to, learn from, get encouragement from, I think it's really, really good. So that community service piece is vital for us, for the program, for Florida State as a whole. Michael offered our ideas, made a big push for it, because again, you only see the athletic prowess of a lot of players, but when you actually sit down and talk to them, we have some phenomenal young adults here, and young people who would just blow your mind. And to listen to their stories, again, what's the world all about? The world is all about differences and being able to relate to others in one way, shape, or form. Listen to their story. Listen to what they have to say, where they've come from. Everybody's different, but we can learn from that and take a little piece of them with us wherever we go. So I think that's the really big push for me, and what I am excited about. I mean, I am blessed to be at Florida State, back here doing what I love, and I really hope to end my career here. But it's in the long run, the accolades are nice, but you always want to hear what you did for others, rather than, oh, I might be the winningest coach, or everybody graduated. But I tell the players all the time, I'm like, you're going to drive me to be in a nursing home early, because of the, leaving the 5-footers each time. But all I tell them is either come visit me in the nursing home or say something nice at my funeral. That's the biggest thing, is like, if that's the case, then I will have lived a full life, because it's all about the people I'm around.
I love that, Amy. And, something that on this podcast, I always like to discuss, especially at the beginning, really honing in on upbringing and family, those parents who may have been behind the scenes, always taking the child to the practices, to and from. And it was always, when I would reflect back on my time, when we talk about structure, academics and athletics, that was my life. I mean, go to school, go to the gym, homework, get ready for that next week. And it wasn't until I got older and, of course, more mature to realize all this, but what parents truly do behind the scenes, making sure dinner's on the table, making sure that the child's picked up on time from school to like jet off to gym practice. And so I always like to highlight that those people, whether it be parents, family, or coaches, I mean, coaches have such an opportunity to have such a profound impact on that athlete, whether that be in, high school, growing up, or at the collegiate level. So I think it's always so important to really highlight those people too behind the success of the athlete. And so, one thing I had to transition into this, Amy, this is so interesting to me. For a season, of course, as you're getting into, the national championship, it does, of course, get more intense as far as the pressure. But alongside coaching the athletes, you have an intense desire to host large scale events at Florida State University. So, could you please enlighten us? Where did this desire to take on such a task start from?
Well, I don't know if it, I don't know where it came from, but I really enjoy it. I really enjoy doing things for other teams that maybe don't have the opportunity to play in big tournaments all the time, and to show those golfers, those young ladies, that, hey, this is what kind of big time tournaments look like. This is what a great golf course looks like. This is what you could have if you worked at it, regardless of what kind of school you're at. But I wanted to bring people to Tallahassee because, let's be real, Tallahassee's on the way to nowhere. A lot of times you have to purposely want to come here, which I love. I love that aspect that we're kind of, almost South Georgia, but we're still in Florida and we're on the panhandle. So we got water close, but I want to bring people to Tallahassee to show them what Tallahassee is all about. Our administration, our boosters, our donors, our alums have helped us, along with the staff here at Seminole, build a spectacular golf course here at Seminole Legacy. And I want to show that off. I want to show everybody what we have. And the only way to do that is to bring them to town. So not only do I want to do it for the players that are coming in and the coaches and show them a good time, and that Tallahassee is a foodie town, and there's a lot more to Tallahassee than just Florida State. But want to bring them to town to showcase the golf course. And golfers are on the road all the time. So for our players, our actual players, I want them to be able to sleep in their own bed, have their parents come to town, have their professors and their friends from school just walk across town or come across town, drive across town, and come see them play their sport, because otherwise we would never be seen. We don't have a lot of spectators. We don't have a lot of fans that come to our event. So if I bring it to Tallahassee, it's kind of like, okay, they may still have an excuse, but it can't be, I don't want to travel 3 hours and come watch. It's 5 minutes, 10 minutes across town. So I don't know if I'm adding to that whole nursing home thing by bringing all these teams to town, and sending me there earlier. But I do want to showcase Florida State, our golf program, our golf course, and the city of Tallahassee, and show the rest of the world that we are very blessed to have what we have.
I think that's so special because even with your background, of course, FSU is your alma mater, and the fact that you're able to be a head coach for over 24 years now, but to bring that excitement and share that pride, with your school, I think is so it's exciting. But then it's also, like you said, it's bringing people to Tallahassee to be able to experience the great culture that we have here. Just as you mentioned, you were talking about restaurants. There's so many unique restaurants. I mean, I grew up in Orlando, Florida. So, I mean, yes, there are definitely unique restaurants, but majority were like chain restaurants. So it is exciting to explore different types of restaurants and different types of foods too as well. But Tallahassee really is a special place because I do have to mention, like from my point of view, when I did leave Orlando and I came here, it really is a lot about the community. Even for example, when I go to the grocery store, I tend to see somebody that I know. And so it builds a sense of community. So I think that's really special what you're doing here in Tallahassee and, of course, at Florida State University. And so I think it's so special to always hear from a coach's standpoint. Those athletes who are here for 4 years, they develop, of course, like we had mentioned, in their academic realm. They also grow in their athletics too. But from a coach's standpoint and your perspective, what is something when your athlete comes here within those 4 years that you want them to either gain or to always remember as they reflect at their time at Florida State University?
I want their 4 years to be the best 4 years of their life. I want them to enjoy the student athlete experience, I think. But the big thing is I want them to get some kind of life lesson out of it. Your sport, sports is not going to last forever. At some point, you're going to have to retire, but understand that just your dedication that you've put into the sport is a success in itself. Whether you turn pro and make money or you turn pro and don't, it doesn't matter. Whether you go into the real world, it doesn't matter. But the great thing about college athletics is it builds you a foundation of an extra family, in that we will always be here no matter what. Like, I love that my players still call and ask advice, whether it be what time, if they're still in Tallahassee, what time do I put the garbage out? Or, hey coach, can you help me? I'm having a dilemma. I've got some stuff going on, and just the willingness to talk it out. I think all of those are really important. And I want them to know that if they choose to be a Seminole, that they are a Seminole for life. Once a Seminole, always a Seminole, and that they will always have a family here, whether it be their teammates, their coaches, or even the other athletes, the students, the administrators, the community that is Florida State and Tallahassee, that will always be there to pick them up. There's no judgment. Everybody is their own individual, and we will be here regardless. I think that's what I want them to get out and be ready for the real world. I mean, let's be real. Athletes sometimes have never had a job. They've never done anything other than their sport. So it's teaching them real life. Like, one of my fun things, and the girls tease me about it, but you try to teach them at these banquets that we have at the golf course, which fork is, where do you start? Which fork? What's that spoon for? What's the protocol in a buffet line? When do you start eating? You wait till everybody sits down at the table. It's little things. I'm like, hey, if you ever sat down with the queen, what would you do? Of course, now it's the king, but if you ever sat down with somebody of royalty, or, a president or something, what's the protocol? So it's little things like that, and be accountable. I want them, I think for me, accountability is a big thing. Like, how you deal with your everyday life determines how things go, your success, lots of times. So be accountable. If you're late, own it. Be truthful. We all screw up. We don't expect you to be perfect. If you overslept, hey coach, I overslept today, or sorry, I missed workouts. It just totally I totally missed it. Own it. It's okay. It's when you kind of try to make excuses for it or lie about it that are the negatives. So I want them to know that if they're honest and come here with good intentions, that we're here forever. We will always be here until at least they visit me in the nursing home. So, those things, I will be here till they wheel me out, if good Lord willing, of course. But I just want them to have a sense of family here, a sense of community, and know that there's no judgment here, that you come and we want you to live your dreams and go do it. You've worked really hard to get here. Now go have fun with it.
I think that's so special when you talk about the community that you build in a collegiate setting. I mean, even with myself removed, we won't say how many years, but when I go back to alumni night, my husband and I always try to go to at least one meet. And we keep our fingers crossed. Sometimes it's the alumni meet, but to be able to see those girls again, the blood, sweat, and tears going through those 4 years, you share such a strong bond. And there's nothing quite like it when you talk about that, quote, second family, if you will, and always knowing that you have that next support system, if you will, I think is really important, because as you mentioned, once you get out, I mean, not even once you get out, but just in life, we're human beings. We make mistakes. Maybe your trajectory, hints towards one direction, and then all of a sudden, maybe career wise, you want to go in a completely another direction. I think it's really important to always maintain that family-like atmosphere, and to be able to speak to people from your past experiences. I mean, there's been many times when I reach back out or I talk to other gymnasts and what they're doing and stuff. I think it's just really interesting, and also just exciting to know that you always have that second level, I like to say, of a support system. And so, Amy, as we wind down, I would love for you to share with the audience. It could be just broadly, generally speaking, but any words of advice when it comes to just life advice or career advice.
Whew. Yeah, that's always hard. I think the biggest thing is be yourself. Be yourself because God made you the way you are for a reason. And just
Yes.
because you're different, just because you have different likes and dislikes, that's what makes the world go round. So be yourself and be confident in that. If I could go back and tell myself that, 25 years ago, um, I may be doing something different. I don't know, but be confident in and trust your instincts. I mean, your gut's always right. But I think the best advice I can give to anyone is don't take don't take any hour for granted. Live life to its fullest, enjoy it. Life is too short to do things you hate. So if you dislike them, go a different direction because when one door closes, another one will open. But people are much more fun to be around when they got smiles on their face and they're happy. And that's what I want to see. I want to, you know, kids moping or, whatever. I've early morning sometimes, and this gets a little off of the quote, but um if a kid comes down grumpy, I mean, we do, some people are morning people, some people are night, but I've had instances where I take those car keys and I hand it to them. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, maybe I should give you the hotel key. Here, take the hotel key, go back upstairs, get in the bed, roll out on the other side, and come out happier. Um, every day is a choice to be happy um, and decide I'm going to take on the world today or I'm going to be defeated. So choose conquering the world rather than defeat and enjoy every moment.
I love that. And I mean, to your point, like choosing happiness, I think it's so true because we, of course, always have, a bad day here and there. But I really do think focusing on the positive aspect of life and being grateful, like you said, when you roll out of bed, maybe something happened the day before, but being grateful that you're alive, that you're able to take on another day. The most simplistic things sometimes when we're grateful for, it could change the start of your morning, which then leads to your afternoon and everything else following. But I think that's really special, like just advice in general. And then you also mentioned being unique. And I think that's so important today is I've spoken this and I've said this so many times, but there's so much human potential out there. And just to be able to go for things in life, I always tell myself if I fast forward into the future 5 years and I look back and I say, I didn't go for that, how would I feel in that moment? And most of the times it would be a sense of regret for not going for certain things. But to be able, like you said, focus on your uniqueness, how you could help others with that uniqueness, and just go after it. So I love that you bring up uniqueness. Like I am all about that because the world does need our uniqueness. So I'm so happy you said that. And Amy, as we close out too, we always like to end with a positive note. So is there maybe a particular quote or maybe that phrase that really stands out to you that you go to when you need that like sense of encouragement?
For me, it's really dream big is a big thing for me. Dream big. And then I kind of focus on a Bible verse, 2 Timothy 1:7. God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but of strength. And that is one of my big things is, I do struggle. Everything is not always great, but a smile, a hello, how are you goes a really long way. And I think that's the big thing. But, you know, everybody has the opportunity to choose greatness, to
Mhm.
dream big. So do it. I mean, nothing is out of the realm of possibilities if we set our minds to it. So that's what I would leave with probably. And at times I need to be better with that. Um, but tiredness gets in. But just understand that take care of yourself first, and then everything will work itself out.
I think that's so special. I love that. Dream big, go after it. There's no better time than now. So, Amy, I really want to thank you for being on the Plenty of Positivity podcast. You are a joy to be around. You are such a personable person, which I know was exuded through this podcast for the audience. So, once again, thank you so much for being on this podcast, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. This was fun. It's nice to be able to bring out the good stuff in the world and be positive. So thank you for the opportunity and for letting me have this hour.